There's one thing that the photograph must contain: the humanity of the moment. If you can't feel what you're looking at, then you've been through the best ones. Here is a list of 40 vintage photos with incredible facts you must see. The facts behind the pictures will surely amaze you, and this list has some of the most hilarious ones too. So sit back, relax, and let's get into the video. The newspaper in the photo shows a prediction made in 1963 that we would one day carry mobile phones in our pocket. This incredible prediction has come through as mobile technology advancements have completely changed how we connect and communicate with one another. A group of guys despised the area of women getting engaged in politics and decided to play a practical joke. As a result, they submitted a list of names from the Women's Christian Temperamen's Union. They had been convinced that no man would vote for a female mayor. Susanna was unaware of the scam until the local Republican Party brought people to her house to determine whether she was running for office. Angelique Margaret Le Boursier du Coudray created this mannequin in the 1700s, used to train midwives. Although this photo was taken as a light-hearted gag, the image of the Apollo 1 crew jokingly praying over a miniature of their command module turned deadly serious in retrospect. The antique door in this photograph is from the Exeter Cathedral in the United Kingdom. Between 1598 and 1621, a hole was drilled at the entrance to provide access for the cathedral cat, which was fed weekly food for mouse or rat capturing tasks. Moko mokai, or preserved tattooed heads, were an important aspect of Maori culture prior to the European colonization of New Zealand. Their preservation seen as a way to maintain a connection to deceased ancestors and their spiritual power. This picture is about human dolls of Anatoly Moskvin. For years, his doll-collecting pastime concealed a horrific preoccupation that relied on his specific interests, digging up the dead and constructing dolls out of their corpses. This image depicts a Victorian post-mortem portrait. Because of the high-frequency disease and a lack of medical treatment, life expectancy in Victorian England was catastrophically low, and because photography was so expensive, most individuals could never afford to have their portrait shot. This historical image, known as the Pioneer's Defense, was photographed in 1931 by Russian photographer Viktor Buller. This haunting photo from 1948 reveals how much poverty can destroy a family. Mr. and Mrs. Ray Chalifo were facing eviction from their Chicago apartment. At the time, they desperately needed money, so the unemployed coal truck driver and his wife sell their kids. This photograph is a stretch of 500 feet or 150 meters dinosaur footprints dating back 150 million years in the French village of Plagne. It is now known to be the longest sauropod dinosaur track ever discovered. This is a photograph of Anneliese Michel. She was a devout Catholic youngster living a typical life in Germany with her parents. However, she began blacking out at school before engaging in increasingly odd activities such as convulsing, hallucinating, eating spiders, and even drinking her own pee. Michael Rockefeller Center, the son of New York governor and future US Vice President Nelson Rockefeller, went missing in the early 1960s in Papua New Guinea. This photograph depicted Regina K. Walters' last moments. During the 1970s and 80s, truck stop killer Robert Ben Rhodes may have killed more than 50 women, but maybe his most horrifying murder is said to be his final. He was the most photographed guy of the 19th century, having sat for over 160 portraits and photographs. He practically never smiled during photo shoots because he thought it was too friendly. From the bizarre to the unbelievable, these incredible facts. Next, some photos will leave you speechless. On May 1st, 1947, Evelyn McHale, 23, fell to her death from the 86th floor observation deck, where photography student Robert Wiles captured this frightening shot. Vintage tattooed women were a unique and fascinating part of the cultural landscape of the 20th century. These women embraced body art. At a time when it was still considered taboo, they used their tattoos to express their individuality, creativity, and rebellion. This photograph depicts a Petronella Dunoy dollhouse from the Rijksmuseum in Amsterdam, which dates from the late 1600s. Estelle Sylvia Pankhurst was a prominent suffragette and political activist who played a vital role in the fight for women's suffrage in the early 20th century. In 1912, Pankhurst painted a powerful mural on the exterior of the Women's Social and Political Union premises at 198 Bow Road in East London. The mural, which depicted the words "Vote for Women" in bold letters, became an iconic symbol of the suffragette movement and was widely photographed and reproduced in newspapers and other media. Henry VIII's kitchen at Hampton Court Palace is a fascinating glimpse into the past and the opulence of the two-door court. The kitchen was a vital part of the palace, where the staff produced over 800 meals a day for the king and his courtiers. In 1971, university psychology professor Philip Zimbardo divided student volunteers into groups of 11 guards and 10 prisoners to observe how they would conduct on their own within a created prison. These are photographs of teenage girls and women who were exposed to so much radium while working in American watch manufacturing in the 1920s that they returned home glowing in the dark. One area of Victorian design that was often overlooked was the staircase, especially those installed for the use of servants. They were made too narrow, too steep, and with irregular steps. The servant staircase was deadly. In 1959, Soviet scientist Vladimir Demikhov succeeded in creating a two-headed dog. After 23 failed attempts that resulted in the death of his canine subjects, he was finally able to accomplish some success. This photograph was taken at Cragside House in Northumberland, England. The mansion was built in 1880 by Norman Shaw for a wealthy businessman and is noteworthy for being the first in the world to use hydroelectric lights. This is a picture of the 600-year-old medieval hat in Lappvartnet, Sweden. The hat was made up of sheep's wool. In vintage photography, the wind is often used to create a sense of movement and energy in the photograph. The use of wind in vintage photography can also create a sense of nostalgia and romance, evoking memories of simpler times and a bygone era. This film is about John Wayne Gacy, an American serial killer who was finally apprehended in 1978 after raped, tortured, and murdered at least 33 adolescent boys and men in his Illinois home. Helen Keller and Charlie Chaplin are pictured chatting in Hollywood in this vintage photograph from 1919. Charlie's conversation with Keller using tactile sign language, as she was blind and deaf. Queen Sophia Magdalena's wedding dress, circa 1766, is an exquisite example of the opulent fashion of the 18th century. The dress is now on display at the Royal Armoury in Stockholm, Sweden, where visitors can admire its intricate details and fine craftsmanship. Believe it or not, these stunning photos capture some of the most amazing facts you've never heard of. The first known photo of a tornado was taken by A. Adams in Kansas in 1884. This groundbreaking photograph captured a rare and terrifying natural phenomenon. At the time, tornadoes were not well understood. This photo shows the pets during the Blitz. The bombing campaign of London during World War II played an important role in providing comfort and companionship to their owners during a time of great uncertainty and danger. Many families chose to keep their pets with them during the Blitz, despite the risks and challenges of caring for them in the war zone. The lady in the photo is Betty Lou Oliver. She survived a plunge of 75 stories in a lift in the Empire State Building in New York. The story of Betty Lou Oliver's miraculous survival is one of the most incredible and inspiring stories of human resilience and survival. Keith Sapsford was 14 years old when he stowed away on an airplane, fell out of the wheel, and died. Photographer John Gilpin, who happened to be idly capturing shots while waiting to board his flight, caught his harrowing final moments. In the following picture, Mount St. Helens erupted in Washington state. Photographer Robert Landsberg was only a few miles away, and he knew there was no way out. The following vintage photo of an 8.6 magnitude earthquake off the coast of the Aleutian Islands in Alaska sent shockwaves throughout the Pacific. An ocean-wide tsunami quickly began to form, causing waves to reach as high as 13 stories. The photo of Queen Victoria's engagement ring is an iconic image of one of the most significant moments in British royal history. The ring, which features a large emerald surrounded by diamonds, was given to Victoria by Prince Albert on the eve of their wedding in 1840. William Ahrens scribbled this note in lipstick on the wall of Frances Brown's Chicago apartment on December 10, 1945. Ahrens savagely stabbed Brown to death and left a knife protruding out of her neck just moments before penning this message. Captured on the morning of August 3, 1952, this creepy photo appears to show 4 unidentified flying objects hovering over the skies of Salem, Massachusetts. On April 20, 1999, the Columbine High School shooting left all of America in shock after teenagers Eric Harris and Dylan Klebold massacred 12 of their classmates and one teacher before turning their guns on themselves. That's all for now, and I hope you enjoyed watching this video. Subscribe to this channel for more such content, and we'll see you next.